We are going to become gods. Period. If you don't like it, get off. You don't have to contribute. You don't have to participate. But if you're going to interfere with me becoming God, you're going to have big trouble. And we'll have warfare. The only way you can prevent me in this 50 or is to kill me. If you kill me, I'll kill you.
Well, so let me read just a little definition of transhumanism. Transhumanism is a cultural and intellectual movement that believes that we can and should improve the human condition through the use of advanced technologies. One of the core concepts in transhumanist thinking is life extension. Through genetic engineering, nanotech, cloning, and other emerging technologies, eternal life may soon be possible. And so this is what they're after. They're after life extension. Now, also enhancing taller, bigger, stronger. See, the sin of the Watchers, the sin when the 200 fallen angels, the Watchers, came down and made the pact to have sex with women and start this new race, is to improve on what God had done. So, because remember, the giants were 9 to 12 feet tall. And so basically what Satan was saying is, okay, you make them 6 feet tall. I'm going to double that. I'm better than you. And so now what we're doing, how can you improve on what God did?
So they're trying to get back in God's face.
That's right. And they're basically, it's like building the Tower of Babel. And they're saying, we can get to heaven without God. And see, that was the sin. They came together and they were basically trying to become their own gods. So now what we're doing is, and cloning is a part of this too, is now the problem is, we're saying, I can live eternally, but I don't need God.
They change our lives in ways that we could never have imagined. Computer chips, GPS technology, the internet, all these things. Now, as humans, we can identify galaxies light years away. We can study particles smaller than an atom, but we still haven't unlocked the mystery of the 3 pounds of matter that sits between our ears. Today, scientists possess the capability to study individual neurons and figure out the main functions of certain areas of the brain. But a human brain contains almost 100 billion neurons, making trillions of connections. So imagine if someone with a prosthetic limb can now play the piano or throw a baseball as well as anybody else, because the wiring from the brain to that prosthetic is direct and triggered by what's already happening in the patient's mind. What if computers could respond to our thoughts, or our language barriers could come tumbling down?
#1 futurist on the planet, and has predicted such things as the internet itself. He predicted a universal search engine, and he is the go-to guy when it comes to the possibilities of life extension and incorporating technology into our biological body.
You are the figurehead in my mind and many others when they talk about the possibilities of the future, especially when it comes to downloading consciousness into some sort of an artificial body, an avatar, if you will. What are we looking at in the future?
The most important phenomenon in the future is we're going to merge with our technology. This is actually an expansion of my brain. Today, we might as well actually put this right in our brains. And by the 2030s, this will be the size of a blood cell. We'll have millions of little computerized devices, nanobots, in our bloodstream. They'll go into the brain through the capillaries. So our thinking then will be a hybrid of our biological brains with this non-biological expansion.
That's amazing. I mean, that's really hard to wrap your head around, the idea of having a bunch of little computers running around inside your body in 17 years.
The reality is that we're going to gradually become primarily non-biological. At that point, we are effectively robots.
There may be a future, and it may be very close, where there are no regular humans left. Or it may be possible that we are the last biological people ever. It's really scary.
Do you think by utilizing this technology that we're on the verge of achieving immortality?
We'll be able to overcome many of the things that make our existence too short.
If we don't want to end up obsolete at birth, If we want to stay the most advanced beings, there seems to be only one solution: to become robots ourselves.
Whether we like it or not, we're becoming cyborgs. We're becoming transhumans. Transhuman is an evolution from human to post-human, where we're no longer exclusively biological. So the cyborg is having all sorts of add-ons. Are we walking around naked? No, we have clothes. We have eyeglasses. We have earplugs. Now these are very, very basic, early add-ons to our biology. We're also having much more innumerable add-ons, prosthetic parts, inorganic hearts. We will see much more advanced prosthetics in the years to come. Eventually, we'll have entirely prosthetic bodies.
So it sounds like something out of a movie, the threat of a bunch of human weapons with biologically enhanced capabilities. Pretty sure that's the plot line to Captain America. But the reality, we might be talking about Captain China. That's according to a new warning from the Director of National Intelligence about the threat from China. And by the way, a warning that has rare bipartisan agreement.
China intends to dominate the world economically, militarily, and technologically. They intend to be the world's superpower.
Noteworthy. He says China's efforts include human testing to help develop soldiers with those biologically enhanced capabilities. And that is why, of all things, we are talking about super soldiers right now.
But what we know is that the nation's top intelligence official says that the U.S. has evidence that China is conducting biological experiments on its soldiers to enhance their capabilities. And they have found that there is ample evidence that Chinese scientists are very interested in applying biotechnology to the battlefield, and specifically the CRISPR gene editing tool, which raises a ton of questions. Picture super strong commandos who can operate on 3 hours sleep, or a sniper who can see twice as far as a normal person.
General, I want to turn to the China threat. You were really among the first people to come on this program and raise the red flag about China. You told us that they were building a very strong military. We know that they've got the largest Navy in the world. Well, the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, joined me on Sunday Morning Futures this weekend to talk about the intelligence that shows the Chinese Communist Party and what it's doing. Here's John Ratcliffe.
It's called gene editing. It's altering DNA, and it's one of the things that our intelligence shows that China is doing. They've got the PRC, the People's Republic of China, has 2 million strong in its military, and it's trying to make them stronger through gene editing. And that's just one of the ways that China is trying to essentially dominate the planet and set the rules in the world order. And why it's so important and people need to understand is,
what's your reaction? We've talked about what they're doing in their use of artificial intelligence in the military, but to actually do this gene editing and have this program to test members of the PLO, 2 million communists, to try to make them better and more equipped to handle extreme weather, more equipped to handle chemical attacks. Pretty extraordinary, the lengths that they're going, General.
Yeah, it's not surprising. You know, as Director Ratcliffe said, this is an authoritarian, it's a repressive regime that, as a premium, is constantly in control of its people. And the fact that they're trying to use gene editing tools to change the nature of human beings.
As its name suggests, the CRISPR-Cas9 mythology is dependent on two parts, CRISPR and Cas9. CRISPR is a kind of repeating DNA structure that was first discovered accidentally in bacterial DNA by Japanese scientist Yoshizumi Ishano in 1987. For 17 years following this discovery, the exact function of these DNA repeats went undiscovered until it was identified as the means by which bacteria identify and protect themselves against invading viral DNA. It turned out these strange DNA repeats actually came from viruses. Bacteria have the ability to cut up invading viral DNA, store it in their own DNA, and then subsequently use it as a guide system for the enzymes Cas9, which destroys the viral DNA sequence should it invade again in the future. In order to do this, Cas9 uses the stored DNA to make something called the guide RNA. This guide RNA is usually coded for by a CRISPR repeat and guides CRISPR to DNA it should cut.
난도 높은 여러 가지 격동작을 연방 수행하고 있는 우리의 용맹한 전투원들에게 관중들은 열광적인 박수를 보내고 있습니다. 미당의 품속에서 살아남겨 있습니다. 우리 전투원들은 경의하는 최고 사령 천한 무적의 억센 힘과 용맹을 더 억세게 벼려갈 불같은 결의에 충만되어 있습니다.
You saw that. There's more. Men break through layers of bricks. One man runs in and smashes his head on them. Others have rods smashed on their bodies, followed by some hammering on their hands. Then one man smashes 2 glass bottles together, adds them to a pile of shards, and lies on them shirtless. All of this while the Supreme Leader sits and grins with his ministers. This was not an episode of North Korea's Got Talent. This was Kim Jong-un telling the world to not mess with his country. The footage we showed you was aired on the North Korean state media. They say it was a message for their enemies. North Korean soldiers have quote-unquote iron fists to protect their country. I'm sure they do. Some say they're enhanced fighters, that they have been genetically engineered.
This is the U.S. Army's concept of the soldier of the future. This video makes it look like it's just a better-equipped soldier. But notice the words neural engineering. That can mean a brain implant that connects a human to computers. The defense agency DARPA has been working on an advanced implant that would essentially put the human brain online. There could also be eye and ear implants, and more circuitry under the skin to make the ultimate fighting machine. Americans are going to have to decide whether this is ethical, because some in our military clearly want it. The super soldiers of the future could simply have enhanced abilities, or they could be part man and part machine, what are known as cyborgs. China is already developing biologically enhanced super soldiers, using what former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe called unethical medical experiments.
This is a big effort on the part of the Chinese government, and it is really horrifying.
China expert Gordon Chang says it's part of a Chinese government plan to create a master race through genetic editing.
They're trying to create a race which is far more intelligent than the rest of humanity. And with super soldiers, they'd be stronger, less susceptible to pain, just better soldiers. This is eugenics. This is creepy. There are no ethical standards. There are no laws.
Now, the French military has been given the go-ahead to also create so-called augmented soldiers. The super soldiers of the future will run fast, need little sleep, and little to eat or drink. And they'll be able to fight much longer than ordinary humans. But should we do it? George Lucas, who has taught military ethics to America's naval officers, says ethical concerns lag behind this new technology.
It always does. And the only question is how far.
And Lucas is concerned that future military recruits could be pressured to accept computer parts into their bodies. He believes they should be allowed to refuse them.
The further into these more exotic technologies we go, and the more the risks are not known, the more we must at least rely on volunteerism, if not as much informed consent as is possible.
But the challenge for the United States is, even if we put ethical limits on the super soldier of the future, it's likely some of our adversaries will not. Dale Hurd, CBS.